Pick the right one.
I
Need to have a dumb dog.
saw Vic and Cindy.
How you been? Doing all right?
Yeah, doing all right. Yep.
That place for all your snow, John?
Yeah, we're pretty good. The wind blows enough where we're at, it just keeps on blowing out. The windbreak's full of pretty good drifts, but
Man.
So I have Deborah Dahl here, Amy
Hi,
Griffin,
Hi.
Ashley Soma, Cindy Bassett, Laura Metzger, Mike Danielson, Sam Stagg, Stacy Edwards, and Vic Emery.
Wow.
pretty close to the games all year now. But
Hey, everyone. Good to see you.
hey, Sam.
Okay, so I'm ready, Andrew, anytime you are.
All right, Lindsay, you let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 minute. Oh,
Boots.
Get a sweater too?
And I went and got a coat.
Nice.
So the dog's used to the boots, and I think she's actually figured out that helps. Even though she walks like a 10-cent walker. Spent more on that than I should have ever spent on any pair of shoes for our kids.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then I put this coat on her just Saturday. And she looked at me like, you're not gonna embarrass me with that thing. So she refuses to wear it. Hey, Deb.
Hello. Sorry, I'm not yet operating my mute correctly.
Hey, Lindsay.
Yep.
All right, 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call, Gail.
Tyler,
Here.
Jeff,
Yep,
John,
here.
Deb,
Here.
Andrew,
Here.
all present.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? All right, agenda is passed. And public forum, Gail, do we have anybody here for public forum? Nope. Oral reports, Lindsay?
Yep, we're gonna start out with Carrie on, excuse me, on the winter test data. Carrie?
Yeah, tonight, we're gonna just have a real quick, and we're gonna do elementary intermediate tonight on our literacy data, and then next month we will talk our math testing, middle school, high school. So, you wanna go to the next slide, Gail? So, Bill, this is building level data. It is data that we use to report to the state that the state uses to decide on, where are we where we need to be? Do we need to be a school in need of assistance or targeted? And at the elementary level, we do an early reading. You can see right up there, we do early reading, K prep, K in first. We do A reading in second grade, and in the intermediate, we have A reading in third, fourth, and fifth. That's what we report out on. Some of those groups of grades do the same. For example, first grade does do A reading. We don't report out on that one, but we do use all of this data for screening purposes. So it's kind of like a big data. And so then if you see kids falling, depending on what their score is, that's going to tell us, do we need to drill down deeper in what the needs of that specific student might be. So Neil, if you would go to the next slide. So the first one we're gonna look at.
One question, Carrie,
Oh,
is
go
when you
ahead.
say a reading, is that just like a standardized test, or
I'm
what
gonna-
is a reading?
Oh
When
my gosh,
we're gonna get into that.
I'm gonna
Oh,
tell
it
you
would
that
be a
right
reading.
now.
Ding, ding, ding. All right.
No, that's a good question, John. I'm
Okay.
glad you asked it.
Yeah.
So it's a computer adaptive test, and what it does is, as the student answers a question, it's gonna depend on what the next question is that is gonna be given to that child.
Really?
Yeah, so that's what an adaptive test does. And then when we say that, that's where what is now ISASS, the old Iowa assessment test that we give, that's where they want to go with that. And having it online, it isn't there quite yet. They were hoping to be there this year, but with COVID and stuff, that didn't happen, but that's a whole different conversation, but that's what this test is. So, you wanna go to the next slide? So these are this is our elementary A reading, and this is gonna be specific to second grade, and you can go to the next slide. So this slide is showing our second graders that took the A reading test in the fall. So these were our fall scores, and you can see, I'm just gonna stand up here.
Jason, let me turn off one of those lights.
Yeah, here, I can do that, Jason. So if you look here, you're gonna see we have four levels here. These students, that column is our high-risk students. Those are the students that were below 20th percentile, okay? Here we have our students that are some risk. They were in the 20th to the 29th percentile, they're still below benchmark. These are below benchmark, these are above benchmark. So you can see in all of our second graders that were tested, 78% of them met benchmark. These students here did not. So 21% did not meet benchmark in the fall. If you go to the next slide, this is our winter scores. So you can see where we had a big change here for those second graders. Now, I'm gonna say, you think about a test like this, our kids had not, in the fall, our kids hadn't taken an assessment like this for quite some time. Because we had taken it we take it 3 times a year. We take it September, January, April, May, in that area. But you can see where we had a huge, we went from, let me make sure I'm saying that right. We went from 78 meeting benchmark to 89% of our students meeting benchmark. That, I will tell you, is phenomenal growth there, along with these, we didn't see any movement here. Where we did see movement was from here to here. And I would say some of that was just from the lag behind of not having been in school for a while. We didn't see in any of our scores in September, we didn't see a huge chunk come here. What we saw was coming from the 85th percentile on up, down here to the meets the benchmark. Where now we're seeing that come back up that way.
How does this compare to last year, winter?
I shared with you guys a couple months ago historical data, and really, if you want to go back one, if you look at where we were here, there.
Is that right?
This is really comparable. This didn't change. This is what we found was really interesting with our students, and we've seen this across the board in a lot of our big data like this. These kids didn't bottom out farther. We saw these kids go here. And some of that, is it because we haven't done it for a while? I don't know. Now, I will tell you, some districts surrounding us saw a 20% drop in this over here. We didn't see that. We didn't see this area get ginormous. We just saw a lot from here to here. Now, what do we do with this data? Well, like I said, we use this, the teachers use this to decide, okay, what are we gonna do for these kids right here? And that's why we have, in second grade, Mrs. Pop meets with those kids. In first grade, those kids are with Kathy Holland. That doesn't mean, just because you're here, doesn't mean maybe you don't qualify for specialized services such as an IEP, but you will have an intervention. And all of COVID has brought that is a little bit different now, where you might not be traveling to other classrooms across the building like we've done in the past. but you will be, you would be in an intervention with a teacher, or you might be in a smaller intervention with a different teacher, like our reading interventionist. So that would be your second grade, A reading. But like, and like I said, this is a big, this is a screener. And it tells us these kids, and even some of these kids, depending on where they fell, even though it says that they met, you know, we know that they met the benchmark, there's a group of kids that we're still gonna look at. I mean, that's what teachers do in their PLCs. They're gonna put all of the second grade, they're gonna put all this data together of all their second graders, and they're gonna say, okay, what are we doing for these? What are we gonna do about these? Not, Tyler, these are your, you know, these 2 kids are in your class, what are you gonna do? No. They're gonna talk together as a team and say, what are we doing about our kids? It feels a little different this year because they're not moving around as much as they were, but they're still our kids. Okay, you wanna go to the next one?
Hey, Carrie. Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Just a request. Do you think, like, instead of saying this, can you tell me what column you're pointing to?
See, we can't see
Oh,
them.
yes.
I'm following all right, but I mean, it would just help. I'm not sure if you're, which column, so maybe you could
I
just
will.
mention that. Okay.
Okay, I will on the next one. Thank you. I didn't even think about that.
Are we on the right screen? Because I
Go to
want
the next one. Yeah, now go to the next one. So the intermediate students take the A readings test, the same as our first and second graders do. So now we're gonna take a look at our intermediate scores. So here we are, intermediate, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So when we look at our high risk, our students, we have 4%, and that's the whole building in the intermediate. 4% of those kids were in the high risk category. 9% of those same, that same group of kids, all the kids in the intermediate that took this screener were at some risk. So these two, the some risk and the high risk, which is approximately 13% of this building, would have been, they did not meet the benchmark. 88% of the students did meet the benchmark. So these students, just like they do at the elementary. Now, the thing is, this building doesn't have quite the same amount of resources that the elementary does. But that's not saying that they are not utilizing all the people that they have here. And Amy did, starting in October, there's a reading interventionist, that's Mary Clark, who retired last year, and I can't think of a better person to be a reading interventionist than Mary. So she works with, they look at the data together as grade level teams to say, okay, who needs what intervention? And when we're talking about an intervention like that, we're really looking at a research-based intervention, an intervention that we know through research says that this is going to get us somewhere. So it's not like, oh, we're going to try this little thing over here. Then we want those interventions to be built, to build upon for students, so that no matter whose class they might, as they progress in school, everybody's using the same common language. So this was the fall, so 88%. Now, you might look at this and say, well, Carrie, now you're gonna say 87% of the students. We went down a percentage in those students that met the winter benchmark. But I can tell you, these numbers stayed pretty similar. We're still at 3%, we're at 3% here, which, let's see.
Actually, I think there's an error in the numbers because the students went up, but the percentage went down.
Part of that could be because we could have tested more students.
Okay.
And the reason would be is some of our kids, if they were remote students, not all of our remote testers, kids might have come in to test. So that's where it's a moving number. This year it could be different because of that, Andrew. And another thing, the target moves as well.
So that was gonna be my question. This includes all the students, but have you
Yes.
looked at virtual versus in class to assess, are we having any difficulties with kids either way? But
I would tell you, yes, that our teachers are doing that. I think that our teachers are pulling this data, this big data, and they're really targeting those. Now, are they doing, let's face it, for our remote learners, are we gonna do everything we can? I mean, I know we've got some that are meeting with that might meet with an associate who's under the workings of the teacher on what that intervention could be. And that would happen in the classroom as well. We might have, I know we could have an associate working with a small group, but the intervention, the materials being given to the associate who has been trained in the intervention is going to be under the role of the teacher. And then they will talk and say, okay, I saw so-and-so do this, blah, 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 blah. And then they'll,
Yeah,
kind of debrief on that.
I mean, I have confidence that we're doing what we can. I'm just curious if we have the numbers to know our virtual students slipping.
I would say that we would not, because once again, we didn't see this. It's not this. It's this group here. And it's really thinking about these kids that, with our remote learners, how are we engaging those kids too? Because I think that engagement looks different. And some of them have been, harder to engage, to get to engage. So our teachers are working daily on how do you get that engagement to happen? And sometimes that's just reaching out to the families but our teachers are doing that daily. So when you look at this, I mean, 179, 56% of the students in this building were at the 85th percentile or higher, which is amazing. That's a great number. That doesn't dispute that we want to make sure we're doing everything we can for these here. And a lot of these are very close to this, but those interventions that are in place, those things that are happening that those teachers are doing to make sure that these kids get what they need as well. And some of that happens during Tiger Time, and some of that happens just in the classroom with modifications that teachers are making and that little extra that a teacher will do. But they're taking this and then they're going to drill down to see exactly what that student needs. All right, the next one is going to be early reading. Early reading is K in first grade, and it's a small battery of subtests. And what it does is it's looking at the phonemic awareness and phonics skills that students need to be successful readers. So if we look at the first one, this is going to be the fall. And like I said, these are all three K-Prep, kindergarten, and first together. In the fall, 85% of them were at benchmark here. You can see we had, that number is not right. That should be 5. That should not be 95. I'm not sure why it says 95. It shouldn't be 90. It's not 95, it's 5. Sorry about that. Anyway, these are the students that would be either with, if they're first graders, they're with Mrs. Holland. If they're in kindergarten, they're with Mrs. Pop. They're going to have something extra happening, some intervention outside of the classroom, along with probably something that the teacher is doing. The kids are going to be at the teacher table more often with that teacher. So 85% in the fall, which you think about it, we weren't in school. These are our youngest kids. We weren't physically in school after March. So when they took this test in September, that's where they landed. Now let's go to where they are in the fall or in the winter. Now we're at 92% of them are proficient or meets the benchmark. And you can see where these numbers, I was wrong. I bet that number was 9 because I know that number didn't go up. Now it's 7 and we have 10 that are at some risk. But that shows that what they're doing for those youngest kids, that is critical for them to have those early literacy skills to be proficient readers by the time they are out, we want them to be proficient and they're working very well towards it. Now it's important to remember as they go from fall to winter and then our spring data that we'll share, later in the year, every time that target gets a little bit higher that they're going towards. It's a moving target. So our kids have worked hard and our teachers have worked incredibly hard to get our youngest kids to where they are. And that's just our winter data. So that's all we have. Next time we'll show middle school and high school where we are with that data. But anyway.
So is this a standardized test that all schools use?
This is, we are required by the state. This is a state mandate. I mean, we do it, we report out to the state on this. This is data that the state will use, in saying should we be a targeted school on, is what we're doing working. They say that if 80% of your students are proficient, that your curriculum, that what you're doing is working. If you have more, if you've got a higher number that are out, then you gotta look within what's happening core wise. Our core is working, and it's just, okay, now we gotta figure out what are those things, those skills, the skill building that we need to do for those kids to help them to be successful.
What do they do with the special ed kids in this scenario?
Those kids will have their specially designed instruction time, along with, depending on what that specially designed instruction is for, they can also have an intervention with,
Are they in these numbers?
oh yeah, these are all kids that took the test are in here. That's a good question. No, we don't pull anybody out or anything like that. Everybody,
Okay.
we have a very small, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 kids that would not, but if they don't, then they have to have an alternate assessment that we
Okay.
get. But yeah, every kid is in here that would test.
Okay.
Good question. But thank you guys.
Appreciate.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, nice job.
Order request for next time.
Yes, sir.
If you would, can you give us some indication with the middle school and high school? You don't have to go back to this with virtual versus in person.
No, I will. Yeah, that's a good thing to pull out.
I know, and there's a higher percentage middle school and high school
Yeah.
with virtual, as I understand, right?
Yes, there is.
It'd be interesting just to see if
No.
there's any differences.
We can easily do that.
And then if we could have this in our board packet.
No,
as a
that was my
pre-read,
fault.
That
Yes.
would be great, yeah.
No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carrie. Lindsay, any other admin reports?
Anything else under admin? I know that we may have some things under announcements and celebrations, but anything else under the admin reports?
Yes, Mr. Beecher, I have one.
Oh, is that about the possible change there, Mike?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
so next, at the next board meeting, I'm going to propose to you, and my understanding from Gail is that you need to take action on this. About 8 years ago or so, the middle school moved with the elementary and intermediate to trimesters. So we were on a semester schedule and we moved to trimesters. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to move us back to semesters. The main reason we made that move was we were shifting to this hybrid standards-based grading. The board I know is aware of that. And we really were, Mr. Billings made that move because we went from 4 grading periods down to 3. And so it was just easier on the teachers. And what we're finding is that, really my teachers use Infinite Campus Gradebook or Power School before that as their gradebook. And so there's not really a lot of entering grades at the end of the grading period. And I have high school classes in 8th grade that are taught here in the building. And so my 8th graders right now, some classes are on semesters and some are on trimesters. And so there really wasn't a benefit to the move. And it's just always every year confusion on the grades and when classes are done and not done. And so I've talked with my staff, and what I'd like to do is move back to semesters for next year. And so I'm just bringing this up now, but it'll be in front of you in March for you to give me the go ahead or not.
And that'll be an action item, right, Mike?
I believe, yes, I believe according to Gail, it is.
Okay.
Does anybody have questions for me on that?
Are you support that?
Yeah. I don't think that's, I think that's really something that Mike and his building need to talk over. It makes complete sense when they're trying to do classes at the middle and their high school classes. I think that's a good move.
You too, Karen?
Yeah, I feel that for those teachers, like we have, I'm gonna use Emily Carstens as an example. She's teaching 8th grade math, but she also teaches algebra. That gets tricky when you're talking about, well, these kids are getting a semester grade. I think that you add this extra layer in that doesn't need to be there. I think it's a great decision to move to.
I think, Lindsay, you wouldn't mind whoever's, I forgot who's on the call there, maybe just with us switching to these half-day Wednesdays next week. Is everybody ready for and prepared? I guess just briefly, if someone wants to just touch on it quickly, especially I want to maybe hit with Vic, because I know with the whole block system and that Wednesdays can be a little goofy with the timing. Just curious, everybody's sitting with Wednesdays starting next week, how everybody's feeling okay with it?
And I can go ahead. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, we sent out a schedule today to parents and students, ran it through staff yesterday, and we're actually using a schedule that was created by Mr. Billings 6 years ago, and we actually used it last year before the pandemic. We'd use it in the mornings when we had PD in the afternoon. So it's nothing any different. We're gonna go through all periods over the course of that 4 hours. It's really no different schedule than we run in the past. So we'll keep our block in place on Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and then just stick in this 8-period skinny on Wednesday. And so in the future, if we decide to keep the block and we go away from the half days on Wednesdays, it can be an 8-period full day in the future if we move away from the early outs and things like that in the future. So it's a great schedule that can grow with whatever our situation changes.
Good. Thanks, Vic.
Anyone else want to answer Andrew as far as his questions about getting ready for the early out Wednesday? That'll be not this coming, but the following.
The middle school is set. We have a 12/20 schedule, dismissal schedule that we use, and so we're set and ready to go.
Good. Anyone else?
That's good, Lindsay. I guess I was more worried with high school, but with the block system, that's kind of was questioning. So. Announcement celebrations.
I think that we'll start out and everyone can jump in there, but I think we're going to start out with Laura Metzger had some information that she maybe wanted to share as far as the vaccine update. Are you there, Laura?
I am. I'm here. I was enjoying giving a Valentine's gift, and so I was composing a email to everybody that was signed up for our vaccine, because we got word today from Story County that they can come on Monday, the 15th, so a week from today, and they'll be doing the vaccines for all of our people that have signed up. And so I'm collecting all the permission forms to get those ready when they come in to make it as efficient as possible. We have some meetings to work out logistics coming up with the admin team, and then getting the notices out to them to know when they show up. So a lot of paperwork and emails and counting and stuff like that. We're all set there. I'm excited about that. I've been very busy with contact tracing. We kind of had a ramp up where we were having more cases here at the high school and middle school. So a lot of hours put in with contact tracing and sending letters. And now it's kind of ramping back down. Hopefully it'll stay down a little bit for a while. Any questions for me?
Oh, I saw the email. Laura, so thank you. Great news.
Great.
Great job.
Another thing to add into kind of to piggyback on what Laura's saying, the governor on Friday came out with another proclamation, and it deals with masks and things as far as mitigation. We had a meeting, it was a week ago tonight, actually, and we talked about our mitigation. And I'm going to ask Ashley after I'm done to add anything in here. We're going to stay with our mask. We're going to stay with our mitigation. We're staying with what we're doing because we think it's working and working well. So I don't know if we, Carrie and I talked a little bit about whether we were going to send something out in a mass email, or we haven't had anything necessarily that's come up as far as any one saying, well, this has changed from the governor. I think Story County still has their mask mandate anyway. But I just wanted you to know that we're going to hold firm on what we're doing because our mitigation is, we feel, is working and working well. Ashley, do you have, as a mitigation person, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I don't know if anybody has any questions about the things that we laid out last week as far as each building, and then we did share that updated. Last week I had presented for you all of our what if scenarios, but then we pared it down to reflect the 5 days on site with the early release and what that meant for everyone. And we shared that out with our public. So we are going with that plan. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions on that? Okay.
I have one,
Okay.
and that would just be, some people have reactions to these. Like I just talked to a person that I work with that's in the healthcare profession, out for 2 days on the
Oh, to
couch
the
after
vaccine?
the vaccine.
Second dose.
This was, she said the first one got her. But my question is, I know it isn't for everyone, but
Yeah.
the only thing is, I know it's different for everybody and there's no way to know. So my question just would be, I don't know what percentage of teachers are getting it, but are we doing a stagger thing in the event is some of that it doesn't put a big load on our staffing? So that's the nature of my question, because I have no idea what and maybe Tyler can speak to it better than I can.
I haven't heard much on the first dose, but I think it's pretty common on the second dose. So I just actually wrote that down to follow up with Laura, whether we stagger the second dose would be an option.
I've been hearing that too, and we've kind of, in the state, the other listserv nurses have kind of shared, it's a little more minor for the first shot, and then the second one is, you have a little more of a 2-day kind of reaction, flu kind of symptom like things. The first shot is more like the arm and maybe a little tiredness. Story County shared with their other clinics, they weren't having a lot of reactions with the first ones and felt like the vaccine that we were going to be having here was maybe having less. I think they're probably equal, so.
And we're working too, we talked, and this came out today that we found out that we were gonna get the vaccine. So tomorrow we're having an administrative meeting, but I know Carrie and I have had some discussions about, we wanna make sure that we have subs ready, probably multiple subs in each building. So let's say that John got the vaccine and boy, he came down and he's not feeling well. We'll get a sub in for John and make sure that that's covered. Would you wanna add anything there?
No, I think, we will have, we've done this in the past where we've had floating subs for testing, for example. So now we're gonna have floating subs for a vaccine clinic, but then having to think of what does the schedule look like so that, and make sure we have people here that we can cover a classroom just in the case of what John just said.
Yeah, and this is purely just folks that I've been, know that have gotten both doses, and the second dose has been more severe. So I think John's point is good for the booster, if we could stagger it somehow, because.
Well, another thing, I don't think Laura just said this, another thing is if we could do it on a Friday too.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So then we don't have to worry about people, not that I want to ruin anybody's weekend, but.
Right.
we wanted to try to get the first one
Yep.
out as quickly as we
Yep.
can. And don't take that wrong. I don't want anyone to get sick. I don't want anyone to have any ill effects. Good point. We'll try to, stagger that if we can. But I know that there are a lot of people, you can ask any of those building administrators, there's a lot of people that are very nervous and they want to get that first one in. Another question that's come up, and I don't know if Tim's there or not, but if he is, I'm gonna defer to him. We've had a lot of conversations going around today with Raccoon River superintendents about, well, what's this gonna look like for the situation in other schools that maybe it might come to play an activity. Tim, are you there?
I am.
Hey, talk to us a little bit about what you see happening. The governor's made a proclamation. Is that going to have any effect on what we're going to be doing for our activities?
No, it's not. We had a email chain today with athletic directors in the conference, and everybody's going to pretty much hold steady to where they're at, which is, it's kind of all over the map, everywhere from households to households, plus 2 or 6 total, or just 2, or whatever it is. But we're sticking with households for right now. We'll take a look at maybe increasing that number a little bit when we get to postseason, which is coming up pretty quickly. But we feel like we're going to keep the masks in place. We'll keep our social distancing best that we can, and we'll stay at 50% probably when it comes to postseason. But that will also allow us to have a student section at that time too, which I know a lot of people are excited about.
So Tim had the ADs, they had a email chain going around, superintendents had an email chain going around. My understanding would be there might be different opinions out there with conference schools, but let's say that when they come to Gilbert, the host school, which would be Gilbert, has the right to say, we're gonna have masks, this is what our mitigation policy is. So just wanted to let you know that in case you get some questions about that. I think that's all that we had kind of staged there, but there could be other announcements or celebrations. Anyone else want to throw anything out?
Nope.
I don't-
Good. All right, thanks, Lindsay. Next, we have Steve Goodhue here from Matt Tedesco for a mid-year insurance review.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to provide a update on your insurance. We did not do an annual review back in August or September when we normally renew the insurance, and I think you all had other priorities, and so we decided this might be the appropriate time to give you a little bit of an update on claim activity as well. So I've got about 10 slides. I think I'll just go through fairly quickly here. It'll take me about 7 or 8 minutes, and then I'll be happy to take some questions in the end. Just a reminder, the district is largely insured with EMC insurance and has been for a number of years. You'll see the concentration that EMC insures a number of school districts across the state and across the country for that matter. We've had a long-term relationship with them. One of the benefits of having the district with EMC is that this is a program in cooperation with the Iowa Association of School Boards. And there's some group access liability, which I'll point out just a little bit later, and some other specialized coverages unique to school districts. The program also, assuming the pool is profitable on an annual basis, provides a dividend back to the district. They did not pay a dividend this past year. We don't expect a dividend this year either, but over the past 6 years, they paid just over $105,000, which is a really reduction in your premium, if you will. In the work comp insurance, we moved to a company called SFM back in 2017. They're a Minnesota-based carrier. I think the staff would suggest we've been very pleased with their level of service, their premium stability. They also provide a dividend back if your losses are 35% or less, and they paid just under $31,000 back just over the past 2 years. We should see a dividend back this year as well. So a little bit about the relationship, and if Gail, you go to the next slide. Here's just a very quick snapshot of the coverages. We do a much more detailed review with Lindsay and Gail on an annual basis, and we look at all the buildings and all the properties, but you've got just about $85.6 million of property that is insured through this EMC policy. That's an increase over the prior year policy of about $13 million as you underwent an expansion. You got $2 million of general liability, $2 million of auto liability, $2 million of public officials liability, which provides coverage for all of you and the management of the district for your governance of this district. And that policy also extends employment practices liability to this board, to the administration, to all the employees, should there be a claim brought forward for harassment, discrimination, things of that nature. And then you've got a $4 million umbrella, which would cover over or provide an umbrella over your general liability, your auto, your public officials. And then I mentioned one of the benefits of being a part of the Iowa Association of School Boards program is you have a $15 million excess liability that's provided to all the districts in the state on a one-time basis, and there's $30 million shared aggregate. So that again is extended to all the districts in Iowa. Once you work through that 30 million, then you work through it. So that's a very quick snapshot. I know you've seen that in the past, but you might like to see that. So Gail, if you go to the next. Here's a really nice chart and a really nice trend line for this district, and that's the number of paid work comp claims. You'll see going back to 16, 17, it was about 10 a year, 8, 9, 8 we were averaging. We're not through this policy year yet. We don't conclude this policy year until June 30th. So the forward could certainly increase, but the trend is really moving nicely in the right direction. If you go to the next slide, Gail, you also see the number of incurred losses per year is also moving in the right direction. We had a couple of years of some fairly heavy claim activity in this district going back to 16, 17. We were down in 17, 18, a pretty high year in 18, 19. Then it started to work its way back down. We've only paid out this year just under $10,000 to 2 claims. There's 2 claims also that still are open. The darker shaded portion is the reserve, and that's primarily 1 claim that's still open. That's a coach that was injured during the course of an activity, and we hope that that remainder will not get paid out in full, but it may. So again, we've had some variation over the years, but I think we've done a good job of working those incurred losses down. Next slide, Gail. Here's also a very positive trend line, and that's your experience mod. I think we've talked about this in the past. For those that may be online, this is really a representative of your safety record. And even going back prior to 16, 17, I think that 121 was even higher. I think it was 126 at one time. And as we had that mod higher, and by the way, you want to be at 1.00 or less. I think you know that in the past. But as we were trying to work that mod down in discussions with Lindsay and his staff, we put a safety committee back together in 2017. We did some safety training. We had seen some claim activity with teachers, food service, even some building and grounds activities, and did quite a bit of safety training there. Did some play with purpose training for coaches. Also had seen a little bit of activity on claims of coaches. Did some fire extinguisher, CPR, AED training, and then finally put together a Tiger Steps ladder safety program. A reminder that the number 2 claim with teachers beyond the slip and fall is falling off chairs and desks. So teachers standing on chairs and desks. And so we bought some ladders, and the agency cooperated with the district on that and put those in each of the buildings. We certainly hope those are being used by the teachers. I need to remind my wife of that from time to time. But you'll see this mod really has worked its way down nicely from 121 down to this year's mod of 0.85. And we haven't seen next year's mod, but that's a terrific trend. You're getting 15% off on your work comp premiums. It's just a really nice trend line. Next slide. Here's your auto losses. I won't spend much time on this. These are primarily bus claims that you've had over the years, and you average about 2 claims a year. And we had some activity in the 19-20 year, and we've had, I believe, 2 claims this year and 2 claims this year. So a little bit more in prior years, but occasionally with winter driving and things of that nature, you'll have these sort of claims. Next slide, Gail. Here's your property losses. We'll spend very little time on this. You really have not had a lot of property losses up until this past year. There are a few lightning strikes. I think we've got 3 or 4 lightning strikes, Lindsay, that we've tried to curtail over time. But then this year hit with the derecho. You're not alone. All the districts across the state had. I'll show you a number here in a minute. But I think we paid out just over about $185,000 has been paid out to date on the losses related to derecho. There's the remainder about $103,000 still in reserve, and that'll get paid out once final bills are presented and work is.
And that's what we're finding out is it's hard to get contractors to
Yeah.
finish these, and we're trying our best, but boy, it's hard to actually finish.
Yeah, we've still got a number of open claims in the agency, not just for school districts, but others that are still trying to find contractors. So again, that reserve will stay there, and once that work's completed, they'll get paid out. Next slide is public officials liability. Remember I said earlier that there's a $2 million policy that protects you as a board for your governance of the district. Also extends to employment practices liability. And prior to 2018-19, we had not experienced or seen claim activity with this district as it relates to this area. And so in 18-19, there were 3 claims that were filed that particular year. About 12,000, to be exact, $12,446 was paid out. You paid deductibles to the tune of $3,000, $1,000 deductible for each of those claims. Had significant activity in 19-20, 3 claims again. 1 of those is closed, 2 is still open. You paid a $1,000 deductible in that policy year. There's been about 21,000 paid by EMC, and there's still 24,000 in reserve for the 19-20 year. And then we've got 1 open claim in the 2021 year, $5,000 reserve there. So 7 claims over the past 3 years, 33, just over $33,000 paid, about $29,000 in reserve. If all of these claims pay, you'll end up paying about $8,000 in deductibles and about $65,000 in total between what you pay and EMC pay. So a bit of a concern when you start to see that activity. I don't know how this district would.
What kind of loss is that? I don't understand. What do you mean?
Legal expense. It's all legal expense that's been paid out. So the 33,000, Jeff, would all be legal expense that's been paid out. on behalf of EMC plus your deductible to defend your representatives.
Okay. You said none before 2018.
I have to go back and look, Tyler, but I don't recall any prior claim activity with this district.
And is there a common link? I mean, why all of a sudden?
Yeah, I think as we look at claim activity, and certainly not to represent state names, I think it's been one primary individual that's filed those claims
For all seven.
for all seven.
One individual
One
filed.
individual, correct.
It costs the district 65,000.
65,000 if they end up all getting paid out, which at least on the closed claims, what we've had reserve is paid out in large expense.
I mean, there would be any benefit for us putting a bigger deductible in?
You certainly could.
I mean, I'm just trying to keep
more
the-
exposure for you as a district, but you certainly could.
Yeah, that worries me.
I'd be more
That's
concerned about the source and where.
Yeah,
all
but we
it's
gotta
coming
get, and I buy a lot of insurance too, just have to be from, these two. But, you've gotta somehow, this is like a big red flag, I would think.
Yeah, I think as you look at your trends, you look at your auto claims and other work comp claims, I mean, those are all moving in the right direction. This is moving the wrong direction. So
I think it's something we can go through for like a deductible analysis, and break all that down and kind of
Okay.
figure out what's that, we can, at renewal time,
Certainly
so we can do
could.
that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can go through all those options, and I think as we go, if I think a little bit farther through here, as you can tell, rates are gonna go up. So we're gonna go through some options here, keep the costs down.
district's got to feel this in other ways beyond just
Right.
your $8,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'll go to the next slide and then I'll wrap up. This is, normally we'll provide a historical premium, but I might want to see the current premium this year. And the package premium was up, and that's everything except work comp was up about $18,000 last year, largely due to the $13 million in new property that we've added. The work comp premium stayed almost flat, almost consistent. So there's your total premium, 246 that the district pays. And then finally, I just thought I'd spend a couple minutes on the last slide here, Gail, just talking about some trends and what you might expect as we approach this year's renewal. We'll certainly work closely with Gail and Lindsay and the new superintendent, but property market is hardening. What we mean hard by the word hardening is increasing primarily due to natural disasters and local to home. The ratio, $7.5 million of claims, one of the worst claims ever in the Midwest. Schools experienced 110 million. They're still about 30% over and above that in reserves. So schools in itself could pay out about $150 million in Iowa. So our 315,000 that's getting paid out on the ratio looks pretty small compared to that, but many of the schools across the state were impacted. Property rates nationally expected to increase 15 to 25%. We're already experiencing that with other non-school related clients. And the casualty market is hardening as well due to something we would refer to as social inflation, and that's the rising cost of claims when it comes to a jury trial, whether it be a litigation or a jury trial. Those awards are becoming much larger, and we can spend more time talking about that a little bit later. But it is impacting the cost of insurance from that perspective. Distracted driving is a big concern. That's people on the phone, texting, talking. I don't think any of the bus claims we've had in this district, as we've investigated those, have ever been the result of a bus driver. It just has been a poor weather situation or something of that nature. But EMC is going to increase deductibles. We have $100 deductibles on the auto policy day, and we're going to take those up to $1,000. We might actually look at taking those up a little bit more. Employment practices is an ongoing concern. Harassment, discrimination. For many of the Iowa districts, we've not had claim activity here, but there has been in a lot of other districts. And then again, as I mentioned on the prior slide or the two prior slides, claims related to open records, open meetings, governance by school boards and other public officials. That's going to result in about a 10 to 12% increase in that public officials liability. And that's not your largest line item, but it still will have an impact. And so as we've talked to EMC and as we've looked at other peer data across the state, I think you would expect to see about 15% to 20% increase on your non-work comp premiums, somewhere in the 8 to 10% increase on work comp. Not because your mod is not good, your mod's very good. There's one class item that's we're going to see a little bit of increase. And so the work comp doesn't concern me, but I think we will see an increase. We need to see it's property, public officials liability. And so with that, that's not a great slide to end on. I probably should put that in the beginning, but with that, maybe I'll just stop and take any questions you might have.
When you talk about our work comp, is that blended rate for everything that's at 0.85? Is that for secretaries and teachers and wrestlers?
Correct. As you may know, Jeff, I mean, employees are classified at different levels. I mean, so clerical is classified differently than.
But you do all that, and then this is the blended
Yeah,
number.
That 0.85
is your mod.
So that's what the credit we're getting from the state based on our claims history.
Okay.
And that's really the highlight of this
That's
presentation.
low.
We've come a long ways, Lindsay, from, remember when it was 121, 126,
right.
and put the safety committee. I think as a new superintendent comes on board, we'll want to make sure we continue that safety committee. We've met several times.
Yep.
We've had good discussion. We did some building audits. We did a lot of work.
Non-slip shoes, you put.
Non-slip
kitchen
shoes,
fittings,
right,
all
right.
that. Yeah,
We've
there's
done a
bunch
lot of
stuff.
things
So it's
in
been
that
good.
area to bring that mod down and bring them. We haven't had a cook kitchen clean in a long time.
Oh my gosh, we'll have one tomorrow.
So, yeah, it's a good project. It's really.
Yeah. I would say just look at some of our deductibles.
Yeah.
I think we're too low on them.
Yeah, I think we should do that as we start
Yeah.
to plan for the year. I think we should stay diligent with the safety committee, keep training. We've done a lot of training. Keep training as well. Any other questions I can answer, John? Any questions on you?
No, good
Tyler,
report. Thank you.
anything else?
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come tonight, to be on your agenda. And
Real quick, Steve. Hey, Deb, you got any questions on Zoom?
no,
Nope. Okay.
thank you. Thanks again. Thanks for the relationship.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
All right, next item, action item here is the Costa Rica trip. Man, that sounds fun right about now. We're looking at obviously moving it from March 21 to March of 2022. Is that correct, Lindsay?
Yep. Vic, do you have anything you want to add to that? That's just, anything you want to add, I guess?
Nope. So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Costa Rica trip is pushed till next year. Next, we have the second reading of the early graduation. We discussed this last week a little bit. There was a timeline with September. Remember, it had to be written, and Vic didn't agree with it, and I don't think the policy committee as well. So we had suggested to make the change over to IESB, which there's no timetable really. It just means if they meet the requirements, they're able to graduate.
Move approval.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And is that, are you waiving the third reading then too? Yeah, we'll wait a third reading on that, Gail. Next, we have Adam Popish and Sam Stagg for the construction update.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm on my way back from Perry from a basketball game, so bear with me if it breaks up or something. So
No worries.
so I think this month we have one CCD that's listed there. The change order wasn't drafted yet, so that'll be on the meeting for next month. The only other thing, I guess, is the update on the grass. We've been in discussions. Our recommendation at this point is to pay Iowa Athletic their retention, which is money that the district holds for work that they have completed. That would leave roughly $30,000 left. We have gone through and priced out and estimated what we anticipate the new work, or I'll say maybe the completion work to get to completion to cost, and that is around $23,000. So there is still about a $9,000 buffer in there that would cover anything that would be over our estimated cost. The new contractor that is coming on does not want to provide a price at this time because he hasn't seen the condition of the fields due to it being covered with snow. So we're waiting for some warmer weather, to hopefully be able to melt some snow out there and get out there and have him look at it. In discussions with him, he was very confident that he could have the fields ready in June for competition on the fields.
Awesome. That's great news, Adam. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Any questions?
I was just gonna say, I don't have anything else on top of that. I would consider either in between this meeting and the next one, or at next meeting, that we would be able to share and vote on, I'll say, the documents that need to be voted on, or the motions that need to be voted on at that time. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask.
Like I said, great news, Adam. Thank you very much for the update.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
Oh yeah, Sam, are you on there? Do you have anything?
No, I think Ed did a great job explaining kind of the process that we've gone through to get to this point. The only pending thing is waiting for Iowa Athletic, the contractor that we would be switching contracts from, is if they're okay with that dollar amount. And we don't see any reason why they wouldn't be, but that's the pending correspondence that we're waiting for right now.
Thank you, Sam. Much
Yep.
appreciated.
Yep, no problem.
Next item, we have consider approval for a Story County data exchange agreement with ISU United Way for August 2021 through July 31 of 2031. Gail, you want to hit on that quick, or Lindsay?
I'm gonna turn off Lindsay. I'm not sure.
Sure you don't want?
Take it away.
Thanks a lot. I'm gonna ask Carrie for a little bit here too. One of the things that we are doing is that we're going to, if you would approve this tonight, we're going to into an agreement with, as it says, Iowa State and United Way. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're gonna use our data that we have. And here's an example of what's happening. All Story County schools are being a part of this. There's a data exchange that is used over in the Quad Cities, and over the past 5 years worth of data in that system, they have identified the correlation between kindergarten assessment, demographics of similar students, and third grade literacy results of the same cohort. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all this data that we have, put it together for the county, and see where there's areas that we might have some strengths and some weaknesses. Would you want to add anything to that?
No, and the data that we're using would be like the data that we shared. It's all like district data. It's not classroom data like that. So, and they do it, what they call a data dump at like in June. So all of that, all of our data would go in, and then it, just like we have it, and then they're using, they'll be doing that study through Iowa State.
Is it, it does say individual level data uploaded, but I'm assuming it's scrubbed for confidentiality.
It has it will have like a ID number, but not a name tied to it.
We'll predominantly be working with Cassie on the data dump, the registrar that we have in our office.
So it's just this for 1 year?
No, it would actually go on.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
21 to 31.
So that then you get that longitudinal data,
Is there any cost?
No.
Motion to approve? Jeff, you,
I'm not gonna approve it. I just don't, what are you gonna do with the information? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I think it's Iowa State United Way. I think it's taking the information.
I think that what
Looks
we
like all
use that
schools.
data for, I think that we're gonna use it to help, it's gonna, whether it's gonna support us to see what are some holes that maybe we haven't seen. It's just another way to look at data. It's not gonna be drilled down to specific students, but there could be some gaps that maybe we haven't seen in how they look at the data. So if we were looking at individual students, that's not what I would want at all. But I think when you look at over time, if this gives us more information, and kind of how do we sit with, we see how we sit within our heart, within our AEA, but I think also we'll see how we sit within our county. And as we're looking at curriculum needs and that kind of thing, you're gonna kind of see how that falls out as well.
Is that laid out, not like, but is that laid out how, data will be shared, or whether you'll be working together as?
There is a
school districts?
reading or a, what is that called? Data council or
Yeah,
something? Lindsay?
Educational Data Council.
Yes, and that, for example, I mean, for our district, Lindsay and I are on that. Every district has a representative. But then before anything like that, you have to go through the council to do any major changes or.
It also, if you're concerned, Jeff, about and I would probably tend to agree, when you start to go out there for a number of years, if you take a look at it, there is a possibility if you want to terminate the agreement, and it spells out what that could be.
Is this time sensitive or could we table it?
Well, I'd like, yeah, if you got all that information, that'd be good.
Mr. Beecher,
Yeah, go ahead,
Yes.
Amy.
Mr. Beecher.
Yes.
Hey, this is Amy. I also, like Adam, am driving home from Perry, so you can't see. Or maybe you can see me and it's super dark. But I also think, Carrie and Mr. Beecher, this is also linked to some of the funding through the Reading Corps third grade. Target that, and United Way has been gracious and funded this tutor that the intermediate has recouped benefits from for definitely. So I think part of this data is the research to say, is the Reading Corps tutoring supporting and helping and really bringing those kids right under benchmark, above benchmark? And so that's what they're looking at over time. And so I think that is part of that agreement and being part of that grant that we get those dollars from.
And we have been able to take advantage of that for 2 years now. So that is true, Amy. Thank you for pointing that out.
Another thing, as we look at time sensitivity or not, they are waiting on our district to be the last one to sign off on it. This was something that was started, Carrie, was it before COVID in the fall, before COVID, and then all of a sudden this was derailed. The situation has been that they've tried to work with the districts. Jean Cressy just wanted to make sure. Matter of fact, she asked me tonight, is Andrew gonna be the person that would sign off, or would I be the person to sign off if you approve it? Because they want to know where things are at with it. You can do what you want. I mean, if you don't feel that this is something that you want to take part in, I think that it offers some benefit.
Andrew?
Yeah.
So I reached out to Mr. Beecher because I had some questions about this as well. Understanding like privacy rights and things like that is something that is pretty near and dear to me and what I do for my employer. And so this is not, as I said, we can't confuse the fact that this really isn't Deb Ordahl or student Ordahl, their data sitting in the database. It is, it does although reference back to my demographics, right? It does not have, I don't believe, any of that identifying information that would put me as an individual. Is that, I think you confirmed that today, Lindsay.
Would it be the equivalent of, I just get a number that's just different than
Yes.
Social Security, but you have all my information and all of the computers?
Without knowing my name and who it is, it's more important that they understand my demographics, some of my history and all of that, so that essentially what they do is create models, right? And they'll say, this is what we believe to be true of students that fit this criteria in this situation. And it really is useful to help them troubleshoot and help. So, I mean, I felt much better about it. I had some of the same questions that you had, but
Well, I think
the information is invaluable that they can provide. So
I agree with you wholeheartedly about, you have to be very, very careful whenever you're sharing any type of data. And one of the things that they did was all those schools went together to make sure we used Allers Law Firm to make sure that we are meeting the criteria.
Right.
The Iowa State is the, I don't know if you would say gatekeeper, but they're the largely in charge of that. I agree with you though, Deb. I totally agree.
Yeah, just sharing that. I had done some additional research on it as well, so.
Thanks.
We had a motion, I believe, from Tyler to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Devin's second.
You know, we just gotta remember that as we sit here, myself, I've always, you know, read up on things like this and make sure when I voted for something that I was sure was the right thing to do. I can't do that right now.
And I'm kind with you, dude, Jeff.
I just can't. I mean, if that's a pre-read, send it out or something, but I've been pretty sure so far, and
It's in our board pack.
It's in our board packet,
That one.
all of the information. Yeah, there's details about this plan in the board packet.
Yes.
it is too.
And if you guys want to read it
Yeah.
over, I'm fine with that, but I support it. I make a
So,
motion.
Deb has a second.
yeah,
Well, I mean, it's 10 years, and so, you know, that's my only hang up. I'm good with a year, maybe give us a little time to look at it, but when I'm committed for 10 years, I need to know more about it, and that's on me.
Any other additional discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passed. You got all the. All right, next item, we have Chapter 103, State Board of Education, approved changes that take effect January 20th. Oh, sorry, no, back up one. My apologies, 7.03.
We have an important one.
Yes, this is a resolution for a public hearing on March 8th to continue the participation in the instructional support program. So this is step one. We talked about this last board meeting. We've got to have a public hearing set for March 8th. And then we will go, what's the process after that then?
So basically, this starts the process. You are basically approving the resolution to continue the instructional support levy process. It starts with a public hearing for the public. It will be published in the paper. You'll be directing me in this motion to do that. It'll go, and so we'll have the hearing at March 8th. And then there's a waiting period for if there's any public input on that. And then after that time period, we just keep rolling, and there's approval, and it will be done, I believe, by, after we check my timetable, but I think we'll be done, it'll be 20, and the last day to receive this petition will be April 5th, so it looks like we could be done with everything by April, so certification before or on April 15th of 2022. And we have plenty of time. So if something would happen in the process, we are fine. But this will start the process to continue the instructional support levy that we already have in place. Nothing changes.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Opposed? All right, motion passed. Now, we go to the one I was so excited about earlier. Due to Chapter 103, the State Board of Education approved changes that take effect January 20th, 2021, and the expiration of the FFCRA that occurred December 31, 2020. Recommend both immediate adoption of the following policies due to emergency situations approved in the Board Policy 209.2. The first readings are as follows. So again, these are already have taken place because of the emergency situation. It is a first reading. And Deb, you want to give a quick summary of these for our policy meeting?
yeah, certainly, because I think that I actually had an error in the summary that I wanted to fix as well. But just as you mentioned, some of these were put in place temporarily through the 31st of December originally, and then one extended. And so these are just simply actions to rescind some of those policies. Now, are you specifically about 103, or I'm sorry, the 503, the student conduct corporal punishment? mechanical restraint and prone restraint. That is in response to Iowa Code Chapter 103, which is already in effect January 20th. So really this is law, and whether we have a policy or not, that doesn't matter. This is the law. They recommend that we have these policies documented because it's good practice, but we would recommend, because it's already law, because our staff has gone through all of the proper training. In effect, this is policy already in action, that we would approve without second reading. That is okay under our own board policy regarding emergency approval. Most of them, like the changes, were simply due to make cross-reference in some cases. In others, with the brand new policies, they really are supplemental and provide additional details, explanations. In some cases, they are providing templates for forms that should be used in the documentation if this were ever to be needed. So it's straightforward. Like I said, it is based in Iowa law, and we would recommend that those be approved as written in first reading for those related to that Iowa Code 103. Did I miss anything, Andrew, about that, or Lindsay?
Not at
Okay.
all. Great job. Do you recommend that we just waive the second and third reading on these then as well?
Yeah, so according to were you talking to me or Lindsay? I'm sorry.
I don't think,
No.
Oh,
we
sorry,
approved-
can't do that.
We approved them after this first reading to go
Right.
into policy, but then we have to continue with at least a second reading, but they are in
Got it.
place after
Yeah.
tonight's.
Right.
I thought we could wait.
Yeah, it's like we have to reaffirm it, but like we can make them the truth right now, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
sorry
questions?
about that.
I don't think we have an action item on there at all. Or do we?
Oh, we don't.
We do. Never mind, you're right. We do. Man, I'm screwing this up tonight.
Or because it's due to the emergency situation.
Yeah, got it.
Second.
Any further
Okay, what was
discussion?
the motion?
Uh,
Oh.
John
Oh, John.
and
Okay.
Tyler was the second.
Okay.
Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
These will come back next
All right, motion passed. 7.05, this is the first reading of open enrollment transfers. And if you look at that same document, it's kind of hidden in the middle there. It's 5.0115. And actually, Deb, you can take this.
Yeah.
Here, it's a minor change we're gonna make right now.
Yeah, so first of all, we understand and we discussed as a policy committee that this is very likely a policy that we might want to look more deeply or more closely at in the coming months, but that we felt that more detailed dive was best handled maybe when we had made those decisions and had the other superintendent in place. Lindsay agreed that that would probably be a better practice. However, there is one thing in particular that we would like to address right away, and that is in regard to our own district's policy where we indicate a waiting list. So if we don't have space for you, we let you know that, and we give them the opportunity to place themselves on a waiting list. And essentially, this just has become an administrative nightmare, I would say, for our staff, but also probably not a very favorable experience for the parents as well. So we are asking or recommending that we just strike that paragraph from the open enrollment policy, that being the wording specifically about a waiting period. Essentially, what would happen is if somebody is denied due to lack of space, and then space were to, come up again, they would simply reapply. That's it. First come, first serve kind of thing.
Lindsay, any other additional comments on that? or
no,
thoughts?
we both, Andrew and Deb and I have talked about this. Really, we've talked to the DE too, as far as their open enrollment person. They think it's probably a good idea. It gets really cumbersome about, in May, we say, nope, you're not approved, and then it could go, a few more months, and then if they're approved, then it has to go back to their district again, I believe, and then back to us. And they just said this could be problematic if we would keep something like that. So I think Deb did a good job of explaining. Do you have anything else you wanted to explain on there?
Nope, I said, like, again, as Deb said early on, we're gonna do a deep dive into this open enrollment. We've talked about this a couple times already with kind of processing going forward, so we really didn't want to jump into it right now. So we just wanted to get this piece, discuss it, maybe recommend some changes, and then we'll bring this back again the next few months to discuss further.
I think for the time, March 1st is the deadline. So it was a timing thing that, with March 1st approaching, that we probably should deal with it.
And we wouldn't put anyone, that's very true. We wouldn't put anyone on a waiting list until probably May. So we wanted to make sure, like Gail just said, we wanted to get this in front of you now, have you have a chance to read it. This is the first reading. If you say, well, hey, scrub this, do that, we can do that. The second reading would be the one that would come back, and you could make it policy if you choose to make it or waive the third.
And again, it's just first reading, so just making you aware. Any questions or comments on it? All right, we've got a full financial report here. So Gail, the floor is yours. We got a lot here.
Yeah, we've got some things going on.
John's excited.
So as you can see, I put a whole folder together to try to organize it. So as we go through here, we haven't really received much on property taxes, but we're gearing up for the second half to happen, and will be happening. We'll be receiving those around April 15th. So for the revenue side, and the other thing I wanted to talk about, so not a lot happening here, but as you can see on the far right, our January is, for revenue, we are collecting about 50% for the budget year. We're at 58.33 of the budget year. We're at 50.41, and our expenses are about 46.93. So it's just a nice marking point of historical. You guys requested this next item here at the top, so I've included that. But as you can, with our EMC, most of our claims have been paid for insurance and our legal fees through our insurance. So as to date, we've probably spent about $8,000 on what Steve was talking about tonight. And then, so I want to give you, as you can see, clear back in 17, our budget was only $8,500, and then we bumped it up to have a yearly budget of 25. So we've been staying within that 25,000. So that seems to be about the right mark for where we're at in that category of legal fees. Not much has been going on property taxes, like I said. The other thing I wanted to talk about, the COVID looks a little wonky this month, but the good news is I put in a claim for $107,000 of ESSER II funds. So the ESSER II funds were really wide range of what you could submit claims for. So I've submitted claims, and before I could submit claims, I had to reallocate our COVID-19 expenses to ESSER II expenses, and then submit a claim for ESSER II expenses to equal 107, 104. And so before I made this claim, I wanted to think about, okay, so if this would be, the last big claim for ESSER, it was before the election, or not the election, but the transfer of power at the White House, was, I didn't want to take that decision for mitigation, because we have plenty of mitigation that we can spend on it. But I wanted to reflect on, and I received some information about, I didn't want to leave the nutrition fund without reflecting on what would that have to do with it. Because the nutrition fund is, my concern with that is salaries and benefits. And long story short, I checked into it, and the possibility of us actually refunding refunding the general fund for the nutrition funds by October 1 is probably not likely unless there is a separate ESSER or separate funds to be allocated to the nutrition. Because what would happen, our salaries and benefits are gonna be way over the $107,000. And we're reaching that now. So, but when I talk to some people at ISB and ISFAS, they really think there's more help coming for the nutrition program in a different way to really focus on getting the nutrition fund in a solvent position. So with that in mind, we thought, I was talking to Lindsay about, okay, this is what the plan is. The easy thing is for mitigation because we have plenty of expenses in mitigation. So we did that. But as we go forward, we just monitor. And it seems to be the idea is there's more help coming to directly impact nutrition. So that's why we did this decision we did. But always in the back of my mind, that is, you know, I don't want to deplete and have the nutrition pay for salaries and benefits and then start the next year, they have no cash for startup. I don't want them to be in that position either. But there is also, because of COVID-19, and I wanted to visit more about, there is also an opportunity to go visit the school budget review committee and ask for the nutrition loan to be forgiven and not paid back to the general fund. Now, there's a process that would happen, but that wouldn't take place until next year when we know the knowns. Is there any more financial aid coming? And where are we at next year with nutrition? So I just wanted to put that out there, that there are some options that we can do if there's not more financial help coming for the nutrition. So that's the ESSER 2 funds, and we should, you know, the reimbursement time period for the Department of Ed to return those funds, it's been about 2 to 3 months. It's real slow. So I put in a claim, so we may not see those funds for another 2 months to come back and hit our bank account.
So I looked at these numbers in nutrition because I was like her, I was, you know, concerned about them. But if you take, they do about $12,000 a month last year on Wednesdays. Okay, we took Wednesdays out. Okay, so we're going to lose that $12,000 a month. If you look at the amount of volume we're doing in nutrition today versus when we did last year, it's a few $100 difference per day. But what you did was you took one whole day of the week away. So that's where our gap is. What happened is we've got less in salaries, but not enough. I mean, not enough to offset it. So our biggest discrepancy on this whole thing is we took Wednesdays away from food service.
Well, that we got students, a lot more students not coming to school.
Right.
It's 16%.
But you'd be surprised when you go divide it out.
Yeah.
It's really not off that much. So, you know, I don't know the whole process about making a loan go away, but I do know food, and it's not going to go away.
Well,
you gotta come see me if you don't know the whole project. about loans going away.
I'm telling you, it's not going to go away. So maybe what we should do is
have options.
yeah,
Yeah,
do
but
something.
we just need to wait and see what actually
Yeah.
transpires from between now and June 30th.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the whole thing, is let's see what actually
Right.
happens. And then the other is just an FYI, on January 15th, we billed $640,000 of tuitions out. We do that twice a year. January 15th, and then we do it again in June 30th, or excuse me, June 15th.
For kids that are in,
Students that are open enrolled into our district, or we actually serve.
and what's our out number, do you know?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
I don't know it right now.
It's pretty, I remember correctly, it's all pretty even, I think.
I'll get back to you on that too.
Okay.
And so that's basically the financial piece of it. And then, so the other thing I wanted to visit about is this is my first draft.
Yeah.
So this is I'm gonna call this our worst case scenario.
No money,
No money.
no increase in money.
But the reason why I did this, and then I also put in here the new money comparison is, and this is a little bit tiny. But the purpose of this whole thing is at 0%, I wanted to show that because we have a decrease in enrollment. the budget guarantee that we are offering. Now, if the SSA rate is 2%, the budget guarantee goes away. So it all depends on, right now this is, and it's all property tax covered right here. We remain whole with $212,000 coming in with property taxes. This is with no SSA. So it only takes a 2% to get back. So we are at basically a zero growth, but it's not funded by property taxes. It's switched to state SSA. So it's a 2%.
So 2% is the break even.
Yeah, that's the break even.
And we're hearing still 2.5 is the number that the governor's.
2.2. Now it's interesting, if you've read the small print, 2.2. They, in that 2.2, they have allocated, I'm gonna say $65 per student in miscellaneous income if you are in person the first day of school. For districts that were not in person on the first day of school, they will not receive $65 per student.
And this is going back to August.
Now, that's one version. So we'll see how far that gets out of committee and moves on. So, but it was 2. Well, the governor was 2.5, and usually they go with the governor's recommendation, and the other side was a 3. We were hoping they meet in the middle at 2.8, but then all of a sudden they come in at 2.2. So
That negotiation there.
Yeah.
Friday is the day that they're supposed to have a rate, but they don't hit that mark very often.
Yeah.
For the timeline. So this is the worst case scenario, and I just wanted to go through this. This is what we basically have is dropout prevention compared to last year, a little bit up. Cash reserve really looks different because if you've been on the board, we've been talking about how our cash reserve, it's a calculation, and we're getting more and more restricted about the amount that we can. This is maxed out. Okay. Instructional support levy is a little bit more. Budget guarantee is really different because this is the first year we've been on it since I've been here. And then management is the same. Now I want to go back and visit about the management. Our theory is here, what is to basically, management is only to pay for district insurance, which we had a little visit about insurance tonight and the increase in costs. So we pay for insurance out of this fund, early retirement, and that's about it. So our theory is if we can keep this consistent and then maximize our PEPLs are always consistent, our debt service we max that at 4 or 5. The $700,000 will be dropped dramatically once we can increase our cash reserve. So right now our management is higher. So basically we can plan and prepare. So when we can come back and put more on for cash reserve, we can drop the management because we've already built that cash and the reserve up. So that's kind of what we've had in our financial plan.
In the preliminary numbers, Gail, on the early retirement, the nearest 100,000, do you have that, a sense of that in your head?
Like for this year, what we have, it's probably, I don't have my file in here, but if I'm thinking about, we had 4, and if I average the 4, and let's say 50,000 per person, you're talking 200,000.
Yeah.
And I'm a little high on a
For a
little
ballpark.
low.
No,
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Just
So we're
looking
talking
for
about
close.
$200,000.
Because we'll have a bump then if the insurance is up 15% on what, 250?
Yeah, so it's called insurance, it's called 270.
Yeah.
Just-
So this management will eventually come down once we can put more in our cash reserve. Because it's gonna be how we control our our levy, our total levy down here. So this levy will also go down once the SSA rate comes up. Because we will remove this 212,000 of property taxes. So that's why I call this our worst case scenario, because if SSA rate comes in at 2%, This could go down to 17.2
That's as low as it's been.
for a while.
Long time.
There's not much we can do about it. So this is, I call this my first draft. So it won't change. Once we know the SSA rate, I'll come back to you guys with a new rate, with a new comparison. And I've been in this game long enough that you can do scenario after scenario and you just
Just wait.
confuse yourself. So, you know,
Start
it's
with,
kind of
start with
like,
the worst and,
I
yep.
mean, that's a great job of managing for the district when it's at 17.5 or even less. It was at 19.9 for a couple of years in a row, right? So
So then, once we kind of get that SSA kind of pounced in there, then we can kind of start projecting the next 5 years then.
so then I also included about what, you know, what different, you know, SS rates would do. We will not see much of an increase in extra funding by any means.
Yeah.
It'll be slim. But, so, and then my next piece is, you know what, we have some extra time, why don't we refinance, right? So this, I mean, actually, the opportunity, you know, I'm sure everybody's been looking at their personal and
It's significant.
it's, I mean, yeah. So an
It's
opportunity that we,
Yeah, it's
we
great.
really need to take advantage of.
$500,000.
So, yeah, and so basically, you know, over the next 10 years, we'll save $541,000. So it's a savings of 45.5%.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
So to start that process, let's go back. Here's our, I had a conference call Friday to review these timelines. Our attorneys would not be ready for tonight, so things will be moved down. Everything up here in red will be moved down to the March meeting. What I do need to know is, we need to have a special meeting, either Monday, the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and we can Zoom this. There'll just be a couple agenda items, basically on the sale of the bonds. Because the bond sale will happen the same day as we have our meeting. So we have the bond sale at like 1 o'clock. And then the board actually approves, I don't know, what do you call when you award the winner of the award, the bond, there's a technical term, but the board has to approve that. So is anybody coming back? It'd be Monday, is the first Monday after spring break.
It's 22nd.
Tuesday's the 23rd, 24th.
March.
Yep.
but if we can do.
Zoom.
If you do
Oh,
virtual.
oh, it'll be a quick
Makes
bite.
it easy.
Are we good with the 22nd? Okay.
That's Monday, 6 o'clock is the normal time frame.
Mhm.
Yeah.
John, is
Okay.
that okay with you?
Mhm.
Okay.
Deb, you okay with that? We only need 3, I guess. So 6 PM on Monday, 22nd.
I will,
You know, and Jason, that'll all be Zoom. That one, we won't do any in person on that one. We'll just do a Zoom meeting.
okay,
need a broadcast? Probably.
Yeah.
we'll talk about that later. So, sorry about taking so much time. I think that is everything I want
Nice job.
to
Yeah.
talk to you guys about. Now, if you have any questions, Jeff, I will get to that back on.
It's just be interesting to see what we got going out versus coming.
That difference.
Thank you.
Let's
So-
see, last month was $100,000 you got from COVID, this month $500,000 from the bond. So
We got next month coming.
it's coming next month.
Yeah.
That's right.
Is the governor still coming to visit?
Yeah, we don't, they'll have the date, it'll be either, it's supposed to be, not this Friday, but the following, one of the following 2 Fridays.
I say we give the governor about 30 minutes with Gail.
Well, sorry, one more thing. I sent out information regarding the superintendent interviews tonight, if you've seen your email. There is a change for the school board. With us having school on Wednesdays, the school board will have all their activities in this room.
In here.
Yeah, right here. We're gonna have our
And-
interviews.
If I did my email correctly to you guys, I think I
Yeah, we're good.
informed you on that. So I think everything's going very well. It's been very busy. We've got three very active candidates. So if you have any questions, concerns, let me know. And we'll address them. But I think everything's a go for the 17th.
Awesome. Any questions for Gail? Deb, do you have something? No. All right, thanks, Gail. Great job. On to the consent agenda. Is anything he wants to discuss? Pull from there?
And yes, we had that many meetings, guys.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
John, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, consent agenda passed. Calendar, we have our formal interviews. Again, as Gail mentioned, our crew will be here. I can't remember the exact time, but
1 o'clock
1 o'clock and be early.
in here.
Yeah.
20 minutes, and we'll figure out, you know, talk about transportation. I'll figure out how to get them over here too. Again, so we'll be here.
Then we gotta add the 22nd.
We gotta add, yeah, Monday, the 22nd. We got, our next board meeting is the 8th here, and then the 22nd, we'll have, again, 6 o'clock Zoom meeting. Should be brief in regards to the bonds. Other than that, that's all I think we have for tonight.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.